We are officially just past the hour, we will get started. So hello, welcome to everyone who's joined us for what is actually the last session of our Turn Up the Wow event. We are sad that it's coming to an end, but we are super happy that we've had so many of you join us over the course of this week, and we hope you found it useful. So this session is really, as it says on the screen, a wrap up and a bit of a reflection of how this week's gone for us and some of the learnings, as well as kind of pointing you in the direction of the next step in your video journey. And joining me this afternoon, as you can see, I've got a couple of lovely guests joining me today. So one of them is Zoe, our Sparkol CEO, and you probably recognize Zoe if you joined our keynote at the start of the week. Zoe was kicking off the event, so it's only right that she's back to wrap up with us and reflect on the week that we've just had. And Ash is also with me, who is our head of marketing at Sparkol, and again you might recognize Ash from a couple of the sessions earlier in the week, so another awesome perspective to have on how things have gone. So with that, I will hand over to Zoe to kick us off.
Naomi, thank you, and welcome back everybody. What an absolutely fantastic and inspiring week it's been. About 5 years ago, we had dreams of holding our very first conference. And as we were looking for this new office space, we had this vision of holding this huge in-person event. And we thought we'd found the perfect venue. Perfect as an office and absolutely perfect to hold a conference. Of course, as often happens when you're looking for office space, that fell through. And our other projects just took over, and it didn't come to fruition. But actually now, this week, the dream has finally morphed into reality. And I'm really hoping, Naomi, that actually this will be the start of a real series of events that we can hold. So enormous thanks to you, Naomi, but also to the team and to our various guest speakers, who've been just so inspirational. And they've really given me, I suppose, a huge reassurance, because I've learned a lot, I've definitely remembered a lot, and I've been really comforted that whilst listening to all these experts, apparently it's not just me who feels uncomfortable when I'm doing public speaking or presenting. I'm not the only one who regularly says, and nor am I the only one who thinks that everything's really clear in my head. And then when I start talking about the topic, I find that what comes out of my mouth is actually this nonsensical garble. So obviously, I mean, video's here to stay, and we're consuming more and more of it as each day and week goes by. And I think Heidi told us that on average, we're consuming 16 hours of video a week. So quite bluntly, we just need to get on and start creating. It doesn't need to be perfect. And we have to remember that. We just do have to give it a go and keep working on it. Because each video that we make will almost certainly be an improvement on the last. So let's just remember there's not one way of getting there, and our first idea probably won't be our best. So don't get too attached to it, be open to it changing. And one of the things that we were told during the week, and I think applies to in many cases here, trim the fat a bit. Actually, just because we're passionate about something doesn't mean that we should be providing too much detail. So if we can think about what's the information we really want to convey and the why behind that, if we remember that short is powerful and the first 3 or 3 to 5 seconds really matter. Also, the enormous amount of work that goes into creating some of these videos from scratch. And Christian touched on this. when he talked through the process of how he collates and puts together the content for his video. And he refines this enormous volume of information, and then he distills it down to create these really powerful and invaluable Law in 60 Seconds videos. And I love the fact that sometimes he even turns up the speed to 1.2 times, just so that he can stick to his 60-second length. So if we don't want to create a video from scratch, we don't have to. It's not necessary. If we do, there are tools to help us. There's online learning available, there's training available, and we can be upskilled. We can also use third parties to help us in any one part or all areas. But actually, we don't have to start from scratch. We can start from something that's been previously created. So I referenced at the start of the week about this dislike for death by PowerPoint. And Johnny showed us how we can transform the bog standard PowerPoint into something really engaging and fun. And it gives so much value. And that's just repurposing the content that we've already got. And actually, if you're like me, probably all you want is a template. And all you want to do is pull out a perfect template, a few quick changes, and there you go. You've got a great video. So those were my key takeaways from the week. Those were the bits that when I sat and reflected about what I felt I'd learned, I pulled those out. What about you? What did you think, Naomi?
I think, firstly, completely agree with everything you've said, and I think particularly those bits from Christian Weaver's session were just super valuable, and I feel like you've actually touched on some of those trade secrets that he's inadvertently slipped out, so I'm sure we'll be seeing lots of people stealing those hacks because they are amazing. And if you haven't already checked that out, I would definitely recommend it after this session. But yeah, for me, I think one of the main themes was storytelling, and we knew this going into the event because we'd wanted it to be quite a focus this week because it is such an integral part of video creation and communicating. But so it ended up coming through in like a few of our sessions, but we kicked the week off with our panel discussion around storyboarding and storytelling, and there are a few things in there that really stood out to me, just sort of thinking differently about how we tell stories and how we use them. And the first thing that we got onto is why stories are so valuable and why they are so effective, and I think this is often overlooked because we just sort of take stories for granted, even when we're telling them to each other, sort of colleagues catching up after the weekend, we're all telling stories, but we don't necessarily think of ourselves as storytellers, and we don't necessarily recognize those qualities in ourselves. But I think stories are just so powerful, as Louis and the guys said, because they spark emotions in us, they make us feel something. So whether you find something annoying, irritating, as so many of those insurance ads do. I know we can all bring some to mind. For us, it's like compare.com and all of those ones. And yes, they're irritating, but we can all remember them because they've caused us to have an actual reaction to them. And I think that's the power stories have, is they stay with you because they spark emotions in you. So that was one thing that really stood out to me in that session. And moving on from that was looking at the fact that you can find stories anywhere. I think we tend to think that they have to be some sort of epic novel or some kind of incredible journey, but Louis in particular was just saying that even taking something like advertising a can of Coca-Cola, you could just show someone drinking the Coke, you could show them getting out their fridge, whatever it is, but that doesn't really tell a story. Instead, you could show this poor can of Coke rolling down a hill and it's experiencing a whole journey, and you can build up this whole story around it, that it nearly gets run over by a car, someone nearly stands on it, and then it eventually ends up in someone's kitchen, it finds its new home. I think yeah, things like that, just really quickly you can see how you could turn everyday experiences into stories that start sparking people's imagination and getting them bought into what you're saying. So for me, that was a really nice takeaway from the first session. And kind of moving through to Sarah Archer's session, where she was reinforcing this message that you can find stories anywhere. I think the way she even started her presentation by saying she was asking some street performers about their secrets to getting people to part with their money, and the guy said, oh, listening closely and I'll tell you the secret of all street performers, and you're just immediately hooked and you're thinking, okay, I mean, I'm never going to be a street performer, but now I want to know what the secret is. And I think the sentence, the 4 lines on the screen there just show you that you can start capturing people's imagination just with a couple of key points in your story, just creating a bit of intrigue and sort of tapping into things they might be interested in. So for me, that was a super interesting way to think about it, and just reinforcing that message that stories can be simple and they can be short. So you can include them in emails, you can include them in videos, you can include them in any kind of communication you're putting out. You don't have to feel like they're restricted only to something more in-depth and longer form. So really like that from Sarah. And finally, just another reminder that even if you're telling a great story, it still has to obviously resonate with your audience. So it has to tap into things that they care about. And I think she was saying that if we were all describing our jobs, we would describe them very differently if we were talking to our grandparents as opposed to our niece or nephew or someone younger in the family, compared to an investor or someone else in your industry, because we're so good at automatically adjusting the way we speak and our verbal communication in our personal lives. But as soon as we're in a business setting or in a sort of professional setting, we seem to forget about those things and just forget that these people also have different interests, different levels of understanding and all that. That needs to be taken into account when we're sharing any story or any communication. So I just loved that quote that Carol shared, that you wouldn't feed salad to a lion. And for me, that is just like the ultimate takeaway from her session. But yeah, those are my kind of thoughts. I know those are starting to touch on different use cases, but Ash, what were your thoughts on how video and stories have been used throughout the week?
It's crazy. I guess as a marketer, my first instinct when I think about video is it is the perfect promotional tool and way to get your business in front of the world. But attending the sessions with our internal and external contributors this week, my eyes have really opened to the potential and the use cases of video, whether that is in a virtual or physical classroom as an educational tool, maybe an internal communications piece, or even, as Zoe touched on at the start, and explain a video about your legal rights through Christian Weaver's Law in 60 Seconds videos. I did want to just call out the presentation that Steve gave that was about how he uses video to engage students in his virtual classroom. Now, Steve has a hard job because he is an English grammar teacher. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't a fan of English, and my grammar still is pretty flaky. I'm very reliant on Grammarly to get me through the day. But what he was saying was animation and video is essential in his classroom teachings, where he has what we might deem to be boring topics like grammar, like maths, or potentially history. And you've got these kids that are just going, oh no, not again. He's using animation as a way to put it in the forefront, to get it over and the information through to them quickly, but also help them retain that information. I took one of his quotes and placed it on the screen here, just so that we can all feel, I guess, the impact of video here. But the key thing for me here is that knowledge retention piece. And that also echoed into Christian Weaver's presentation on how he uses video to explain the legal rights with his Law in 60 Seconds video series. Now, what is interesting, and I think you said it most perfectly, Naomi, when you were introducing him, is that Christian is a barrister by day and a content creator by night. It's an odd mix. You wouldn't necessarily mix a lawyer and video content creator together, but yet this is what Christian is doing, and he's doing it so brilliantly that he's now been signed with a book deal. And it came from a need that he wanted to educate his friends and family on their legal rights, but needed to do it in a concise way in the 60 seconds and in a way that was being retained. So he chose video as that output. For me, this key takeaway, which I've put on the screen again, is all about how Christian got to this point in his life where he wanted to start engaging with video content to explain those legal rights, but also sharing his mission. And I think that's just the key here. The end mission is to arm everybody about their legal rights. It's a fantastic call for what you're trying to do, but also a brilliant way to showcase video potential and a really cool homage to us, to VideoScribe, and the power that it has as a tool to educate. Now, taking a step back from the educational side and looking more about our internal comms, the session with Dave King on how he talked about how he's using video to enhance his communication in his global organization. Now, if you think about internal comms, you would think email. Oh, there's a train. You would think email, you would think presentations in a large setting, and you may not necessarily think video. And what Dave did say is that they did consider another option before resorting to video. So again, on the quote, we can see that they wrote manuals and short guides. So something that is quite tangible, but it just wasn't being read. And because it wasn't being read, they weren't able to share that information that they needed to be heard, and they needed their volunteers to retain. So by working with our Sparkol studio, we helped them create their video series for internal communications, which was all about showcasing their new portal for their volunteers. And by doing so, the volunteers were able to retain the information, get a glimpse of what this new portal would look like and how they could use it. I think it's just another brilliant way of us seeing these different use cases of video in situations where you may not automatically think, okay, video could apply here. Again, like you said, Zoe, at the start, it's an opportunity where if we were doing internal comms with a presentation, you now have the question in your mind going, actually, could video do this for me? And would it be more effective? And would my colleagues retain the message strongly? And the final point, again, as I'm in marketing, I wanted to just sing the songs and sing the praise about video as an advertising tool. Heidi touched on this in her session about driving digital advertising results in video, and numbers don't lie. People sometimes do, but numbers definitely don't. The stats here say, on average, we're spending 16 hours a week watching video. Mine's probably a whole lot higher than that, but on average, we've got 16 hours of video content consumption, and that's grown by more than double in 2 years. So imagine what the next 2 years could bring for us. Looking at mobile traffic alone, here we go, 80% of mobile traffic will be by video in 2022. So the potential is huge. We're jumping on it. We know that you guys are jumping on it too, but let's just not forget about it. Video is a winner. Video is a great way to express what you need to say in a meaningful way.
No, I mean, absolutely. And it's really true that now anyone, anywhere, can bring their stories to life in these magical and meaningful ways. And we love that fact, but we also need to help people along the way. And it's incredible what people do when they're actually a little bit out of their comfort zone. And so I challenge each and every one of us, step out of our comfort zone and actually just get a little braver and experiment just a bit and try something a bit different, try a different approach and try a different message. And it may or it may not work, but you'll never know if you don't try. There are templates out there for you. There are tools and hints and tricks that we can, that we've got, that you'll find on our blog, on our website, and across the board. I mean, you're part of this huge community. And actually the community will support one another and they'll help one another. And we don't need boring PowerPoints anymore. There's a way now of translating that into engaging content. And so challenge yourself and challenge somebody else to actually step away out of the comfort zone and do something a little bit different. And remember that actually you don't have to do it on your own. And so if you can work with somebody trusted, as Louis mentioned earlier in the week, actually work with this trusted person to bounce your ideas off and instantly see if you can just make a little bit more wow. And on that, that's my last word. Back to you, Naomi.
Perfect. Thank you, Zoe. I think you've perfectly summed up basically the feeling that we all have, hopefully leaving this event, that we're just armed with so much more creative inspiration and ideas to apply to our own worlds, whatever that looks like for us. But yeah, so that is really kind of a roundup of all our thoughts and all our feelings about this week. We hope you've enjoyed it just as much as we have presenting it, and we know we've kind of thrown a whole load of different topics at you related to all corners of video. So if there is any area that you wanted to learn more about, please do get in contact with us. We've got our email address on the screen there. You can reach out to us, marketing@sparkol.com. And we, in the follow-up emails, we have shared quite a lot of extra resources. So hopefully you are fully armed and ready to go away from this week and start next week afresh with loads of new content ideas. But yeah, we just wanted to say once again, thank you so much to all our fantastic guest speakers. We hope you'll agree they've been fantastic and shared so much information. And also to the rest of the Sparkol team, Zoe, Ash, the rest of the Sparkol guys, for presenting and supporting this event. I think we couldn't have done it without you, obviously. So yeah, we would also love to hear your feedback about this week. If you've joined this session, multiple sessions, the whole week, we really want to know more about how you found it and any insights. So again, you can share those with us, marketing@sparkol.com, but we'll also be reaching out to get your thoughts next week. We will also be sharing all of the sessions next week, so you can catch up even on the ones you haven't registered. We'll send those out. But for today, we will end here and let you get on with the rest of your Friday, whatever time, wherever you are in the world. And we hope to see you on another event, as Zoe clearly has just signed us up to present more of these. So hopefully we will see you on another session or event like this soon. But yeah, thank you so much and have a great weekend. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.